Welcome back to the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. Today we have Laura Meyer on the show. And as a reminder, we're brought to you by Corporate to Contract, the place to go where you have corporate or office experience and want to take the skills you have and become your own boss, freelancer, online contractor. If you love this podcast, don't forget to sign up for the Tipping Jar of Wisdom, where every Thursday you get exclusive content straight from our guests like Laura. So Laura, hello. Thank you for joining.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Laura Meyer is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and growth consultant to national brands, top influencers, and forward-thinking nonprofits. As a serial entrepreneur who has scaled 7 different 6- and 7-figure online and offline companies over the last 20 years, Laura Meyer knows firsthand about what works when it comes to what really works when it comes to growing a company. Laura's company, JoyBrand Creative, exists to multiply the impact, capacity, and results of mission-driven organizations. So again, thank you for being on the show. Super pumped. Tell us a little bit about your business, where it is today, JoyBrand Creative, and also Leap Consultancy certification.
Yeah. So with my company that I have today, it's an online business. It's fully remote team. One of the things I absolutely love about it. And we have a couple different revenue streams. The first one is that we help mission-driven for-profit and nonprofit organizations grow. And that is a scaled one-to-one consultancy. So we use proprietary IP and technology, and we consult with them on how to actually grow their organization, specifically enrollment for their programs. So that is one side of the business. The other side of the business is that we certify growth consultants in our IP, and we also have a mastermind for consultants. So really 2 different sides of the business. We coach consultants, which is kind of, it confuses a lot of people when I first explain it, but then it eventually makes sense. We help people who are aspiring consultants become in-demand consultants on one side of the business, and the other side of the business, we actually do the consulting. So we're weird. We're actually one of those coaches that does what we teach. It's very strange and unusual in the online space.
Yeah, I know, because I think I saw on your page, like a lot of people complain that like they actually want to get results from like what they're actually being coached, but they don't, or something like that. And that was super interesting. So I know, tell me, there's 2 things I want to kind of go into, and I'm struggling where to go first, but I think I kind of want to talk about AI because that's such a hot topic. And all over your page, you said our proven framework combines the power of AI technology and emotional intelligence to accelerate program recruitment. So this is for the nonprofits, for our listeners. Also, we use the latest AI technology to make it easier for interested individuals to make real-time decisions. Let's just dive into that a little bit. Since again, hot topic, how do you use AI with the nonprofits?
It's really simple. I wish I could say that it was like super complicated and I had this amazing like system that no one's ever heard of. But really what we do is we use text messaging, SMS text messaging within our system to answer people's questions quickly. I think it's really amazing how much that works. And so we put information about the program or commonly asked questions into our AI SMS technology. And then for a lot of for example, for a lot of the people that our nonprofits serve, it's a population that they don't do email, they're just on text. They're looking for help and solutions maybe late at night, where you typically wouldn't have a team member sitting around, like, being able to text back. And then the next day is another fire. It's getting through the day. It's making sure your family has food to eat. It's making sure that you have transportation to work, right? So being able to help people that quickly through AI, like getting them the answers they need. And then if the AI can't answer it, it kicks it to a general inbox where it'll say, I need to check with somebody to get back to you. We'll respond first thing in the morning. But at least we're helping people like on their time and terms. And I think in general, when AI can do that, it helps businesses grow. Most people use AI for kicks and giggles, right? Like take a photo of your fridge and AI will tell you what you can make for dinner. And that's awesome. Like I had ChatGPT create a Disney list for our family a few months ago. But ultimately, that's what we're looking to do, is to make people's lives easier, faster, help them make the decisions that they need to make within a shorter time frame. And I'll also say my belief on AI is not necessarily that like we use it to get more efficient so that we can get busier. Like that is not the idea. the idea is that we use AI to get more efficient so that we can free up space for critical thinking and things that only humans can do.
And I think that's very important because there's a lot of talk right now, like, oh no, is AI, is ChatGPT, are they going to replace my job? Especially for like copywriters and people who do a lot
Yeah.
of writing. And I mean, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but I think for me, it's not replace. I'm still hiring a copywriter actually to work on something right now. It's just like, for me, it's that nice little bit of like, write me this. And then I go in and I tweak it, or I mean, that's just
Yeah.
using it for writing and like lists. Like I once was having a mind block on a lead magnet I was creating. And then I was able to use it to be like, oh, yes, 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 that's what I'm looking for. Right. So it's like, it's not yet to me replacing any human.
Yeah.
It's just guiding and helping, like you said, with the whole system, guiding and helping. So how did you get into helping and nonprofits specifically? Because looking through your history, which we can go into a little bit later, it feels a little out of the blue.
Yeah.
So how did you go in that direction to help nonprofits specifically?
Yeah, so it was out of the blue. I got a call about a year ago. I was working more exclusively with for-profit brands, online influencers, and well-known thought leaders. And I got a call from somebody who I used to do work for in the private equity space, and he had become a mentor. And he was doing some work with the board of the Lab for Economic Opportunity at Notre Dame University. And they were really struggling with their nonprofits to get them to grow to the degree to which they needed to justify the resources that they're putting into the brands. And so I was like, I don't know nonprofits. And he's like, just try it. And I tried it and I loved it. And I think, as a very values driven person, like I've been in business 20 years, there's a lot of ways I can make money. Like I'm not super worried about my ability to make money. It's really how am I spending my time that's aligned with my values, right? And that's why I really fell in love with the nonprofit work. And we still have a few for-profit clients, but they tend to be very mission driven. They tend to be very they're in it for purpose and for impact. They're not, starting a business to get on to the Wall Street ticker. Like,
No.
they're not starting a business to go public, and and it's not a hedge fund. These are kinds of organizations that care about making money, but also care about social change. And that's who are really particularly good at helping.
So then how does the LEAP consultancy and the certification, how does that tie into this business?
Yeah, same thing. So it's really interesting. My philosophy in general is like, just do really good work and your business will grow, which sounds very funny as a marketer, because I am a marketer at heart. But, I always love it when people come to me with under-marketed programs and services. There's not any marketing that can make up for great outcomes. So I'll start out by saying that. So I have this business, right? And it's an awesome business. My clients are amazing, like pretty large lifetime customer value because they're happy, they stick around. And people were coming to me. I joined programs or masterminds, and they're like, forget about this program I'm in. Like, how do I have a business like yours? You're not on social media all the time. You're not launching. You're not, you're not doing all of these things that like I actually don't want to do anymore. I don't want to be live on Instagram anymore. Like, how do I have your business? How do I have your lifestyle? Like, and I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I can teach it. I'm just not sure. And then I spent some time with it, and I launched a beta about a year ago, and it filled up. And I always cap it at a small number because I really like making sure that people get good results. And they got great results. Most of them were getting consulting clients by the end of the 8-week program. So I was like, all right. So we don't run it that often. We're going to run it twice this year. We were planning on running it 3 times, but we just ended up being too busy with the consultancy to be able to do both. And so we'll run it again in the fall, but it's a certification program to help people have the kind of business that we have. And people love it. We get such great feedback. It's really rewarding to help people package up their genius in a way that they can sell it. So it's really fun.
So then my next question is, if you're not on social media a lot, and yet these people, how did you meet them? Did you have a newsletter list? Like, where did these people who wanted to learn from you, where did they come from?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I have a podcast, I have a list, but ultimately it's all relationship marketing. It's all relationships, connections. Dream 100 would be the formal way of calling it, but it's all literally what I wrote a book on, relationship marketing. It's getting to know people, staying in touch with them, staying top of mind, attending events and hanging out where your ideal client hangs out, getting to know them and making sure that they know that you can create value for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit then about your varied career path, because it is fascinating for our audience. I was looking at how you started in photography, wedding photography.
Yeah,
Then you went on to creating little nest portraits,
yeah,
which you then created as a franchise
yeah.
before going off and looking at I thought there was some kind of group in there, I think. And then I could pull up my research, but it just seems so varied. So talk to me about that whole like photography business, a franchise, and then going into consultancy.
Yeah, I mean, really over the last 20 years, I've been in two industries. I've been in the photo industry and now I'm in the consulting industry. I've had a couple little partnerships and different projects in between there, but for the 15 years, I was a wedding photographer, top wedding photographer in the Northeast. Then I became I had a couple portrait studios that were doing 7 figures in revenue combined, and then franchised the business and grew it to about 12 locations. I think we had 16 sold and 12 open. And then about 5 years ago, I just decided that it wasn't something that I was going to grow. It was a really difficult decision for a variety of different reasons. For about a year before I made the decision to shut it down, I didn't sell any franchises. And I really tried to spend a lot of time with the business model and with the customers and serving the customers and trying to understand how to pivot, honestly, because the photo industry was changing so much. And
Hold on, I'm sorry. Is that because I don't know much about photography? Is that because of
yeah,
cell phones? Is
yeah,
that because okay.
yeah, 100%. I mean, when I started that portrait studio, I mean, it was flip phones. Like it was, I don't think the iPhone was out yet. If it was like back when it was blurry and you could
Yeah.
barely see what the photo was. Remember that? I
Yep.
mean, that's really when we were making really good money as a portrait studio. Now, can portrait photographers still do well? Like, absolutely. There's a lot of boutique and niche businesses out there that are doing well, but not at the scale that we were operating. And that we needed to continue to operate in order to justify the infrastructure costs of being a franchise. So, I spent about a year being like, well, maybe we can go into photo education. Maybe we can get into, maybe we can lower the cost. Maybe we can reduce the footprint from the original, infrastructure that we had modeled to support this business. Maybe we could, go to lesser visible retail locations, but we were just too new, to be honest, to like change the business model that much. And franchising it's not conducive to changing the business model at all. You're in a 10-year agreement based on, historical financial data that was, that people purchased the concept based on what had happened in history, and wanted that model to still exist in a lot of ways. And I don't blame them. I did too, but I didn't see it getting better. So it was a combination between cell phone technology, but then also the amount of products out on the market. When we started the portrait business, there was just Shutterfly, and like that was it, right? And it was pretty junky. Now there's great products out there that are not very expensive. There's FrameBridge, there's Artifactive Pricing, there's all of these little boutique options with, really nice albums and frames, and like the products also where we made 80% of our revenue, were also coming out and kind of undercutting our bread and butter. So I didn't see it getting better. I was so fortunate that happened about a year or two before the pandemic, I guess, but 2 years before
Oh,
the pandemic.
yes, of course. Oh
We
my
would,
gosh.
there's no way we would have survived it. So we just, it ended up working out. But I knew it. I knew it. Like I knew we were swimming upstream. I saw the customer purchasing patterns, and it was a hard reality because I had spent 15 years growing my name in that industry. I was in Working Mother and Inc. And all the photography magazines. You know, I was featured and was really highlighted as an industry success story. And then had to kind of face this reality of like, this isn't, I can't keep pretending this is going to be okay. This is not going to be okay for our industry. So I really, it was a really hard, horrible decision. And sitting down with my staff that I had cultivated and poured into and trained and loved on, and tell them that they no longer have a job, like sitting them down and telling them that on a Monday morning was horrific. It was really one of the worst days of my life. No question. And at the same time, I look back on it and I'm like, I think I have my back on how I handled that. You know, like we gave customers notice, we offered refunds. Like I did it before we were destitute. I think was a really good thing. And financially, you know, I didn't let the bank account go down to zero. I saw it declining and I was like, I'm gonna head this off. And that gave me an opportunity to pay people until the last day and refund customers that didn't want, you know, that still had, you know, outstanding liabilities too. And, you know, it was just hard. It was just hard. It was grieving. I grieved for years. And because I had a good network and good relationships with people, and I really tried to do it the right way. I think people saw that and noticed it, and they were like, you know what, Laura, like I saw what you built, I saw what you created, and I'm sorry that, you know, it didn't work out, but like, can you come talk to my marketing team because you created a multi-million-dollar brand from scratch. And you know, I loved what you were doing with digital marketing. And these were CEOs of big companies, Lash Lounge, Massage Heights, Painting with a Twist, that were inviting me in to look at their marketing. And I started consulting and really fell in love with it. So that was, I can't believe that was 5 years ago, almost to the date. I mean, really, May 15th, we're recording right now. I closed the studio May 31st,
Oh, wow.
5 years ago.
So you make it sound like it was pretty abrupt. Was there any kind of gradual wind down? And like, I mean, there must have been, because you can't just snap your fingers and be like, sorry, this is done. But it sounds like it was actually kind of quick.
Yeah, I would say it was a 60-day wind down.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, I knew it, like I said, I knew like a year going into it. I mean, I fought, you know, like I was gripping onto the edge of that cliff, like everything I had. I was trying new products. I was trying new workshops. I was trying photo education workshops. I was trying crafting workshops. I was just trying to see if like something else would trend, just as like a Hail Mary. So, I mean, I knew it. My staff knew it. Like we all knew it. I think the franchisees were very stressed, which I understand, you know, watching me try to kind of save the products and save the business. So I don't know that anybody was shocked, but at the same time, it's still a surprise. There's a lot of people involved and a lot of people invested, a lot of emotions. And, you know, I would say from when I made the decision to, you know, sweeping the floors of the studio on the last day to making the last payroll was about a 60-day period. And then the legal and all that kind of stuff was another like year.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like sad for you, even though I
Yeah.
know you're like, you know, you come through so much and you seem
Yeah.
like you're pretty happy right now and
Yeah.
very happy in
I am.
consultancy. It's like, you know, that adage of like everything happens for a reason. But, you know, and like you said, if COVID, if you were still trying to figure it out when COVID hit, I mean, that would have been the nail in the coffin. That would have been real bad.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, maybe it would have been more justified. I'm not sure, but I'm just glad that I didn't have that. I was already so stressed that would have put me in the hospital. There's no question.
Do you remember the moment when you came to the realization that you had to shutter the oh, sounds like a pun, not intended, but when you had to shutter the franchisee and everything with the little
Yeah.
nest portraits? Do you remember that like defining moment and how that felt?
Yes, they were starting to close. Like we had one location in Tennessee that, you know, I was contacted like out of the blue by a bunch of news stations wanting to know why the doors were locked and nobody was inside. And I didn't know that they were closing. Yeah, their franchisee. And again, she's an amazing person who made that decision. She was just desperate and scared, and then another one started to close. And I was like, there's no way, like, there is no way we're going to grow this company when some of our first franchisees are closing. There's just no way. And so I knew at that second close that I was like, not only are we not going to survive this, it's not the right thing to do. Like, that's really what it came down to. It's like, it's not the right thing to do to keep chasing people down for royalties. It's not because, it's not the right thing to do. I know the business model has changed. So what am I going to do? Like, have all these people, scrape their bank account to pay me? That's not the right thing to do. And I think a lot of franchisors, while I think they were probably really frustrated, I also think a lot of franchisors would have pursued it legally, and they would have been in the right to keep getting paid. And I didn't think it was the right thing to do. So release them into license agreements. They had full right, no royalties, to use the trademark moving forward. And I was kind of like, I hope you make it. Like, I really do. Even if maybe I didn't have the most respect for how some of them handled things. Like, I was like, I hope this investment pays off for you, like, at some point,
That's hard. And now, do you feel like your business is doing as well as it was with the photography and the little nest portraits? Or
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so this is such a good thing for your listeners, because I know that they are so interested in that, in the $1 million tipping point. And there's a lot to be said for bottom line versus top line results. So when I closed that business, I would say, if I were to estimate, we were at a system-wide revenue of 3.2 million. I could have walked around being like, I'm a $3 million business owner, but I'm not making money on a lot of that 3 million, right? A lot of it's small royalties for my own company-owned location. I'm funding the infrastructure of the franchise business with the profits from my company-owned location, which were dwindling, and sporadic versus consistent, like they were when we franchised. And I had big payroll, right? And so within a few years, my multi-six-figure business was netting me about 3 times the salary of my $3.2 million business. So, now we're getting closer to, 7 figures, likely hit that this year. And to me, I could have hit it 2 years ago. Like, it's not about not knowing how to, it's not about not knowing, how to hit that number. It's wanting to hit that number in a way that works for me and my family and maximizes profitability.
yes, because a lot of your consultancy, what you're teaching, I noticed, is that you can have that schedule and that freedom.
Yeah.
To, I think I saw one of your social media posts, like, leave at 2 p.m. or was that your website? I'm not sure, but leave at 2 p.m., take that lunch break, do whatever you want, create a schedule that works for you.
Yeah.
And not that's all about the money, even though that's also part of it.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the most important action item you took to grow your business consistently over all these businesses that you've had?
It's 100% relationships. It's 100% staying in relationships with people, showing up when I didn't want to, producing outcomes when I didn't want to. It's really interesting. So we just made a full-time hire for our company. And a lot of the people that applied were coming from being a freelancer. And I was kind of floored by how few people had stuck with something long enough to get a good reference. Like, that blew my mind as I was doing the reference checks. And somebody would be with something for 3 or 4 months, and then the job would change, or the freelance role would change, and they'd be like, oh, I don't want to actually do one-on-one calls with the people in the program, so I'm going to leave and move on to another freelance gig. Like, there's a lot of that, right, in the freelance world, in the solopreneur world. But I just think, like, when you do really good work, like, when it's less about what I want to do or what I feel good about or what I don't, it's like when you're just very focused on doing the best work possible, and you leave things in a way that you're super proud of, like you will get referred, you will be able to tap into those networks. Like if I had just thrown a grenade on my old business and walked away, which could have been justified, in a lot of people's minds. No way would I have the consulting career I have. People are watching you when you're a leader, when you're a business owner, people are watching you. They watch how you handle things. They watch the good and the bad. So first of all, it's just really strong relationships. Like I can look at single relationships and say, absolutely, that's brought 7 figures into my business. And then the second thing is, and it is to keep up with them, is just to have a system, have a process. I talk a lot about this in my book, but have a system, have a process by which you are staying top of mind for people. When I have consultants come into my programs, they'll be like, I don't know anybody that could be a good client. And I'm like, really pull up your LinkedIn. And I'm like, you have amazing connections. Like, why are you running around trying to, make all of these new connections? I think a lot of people vastly underestimate the people that already know, like, and trust them. Or they think, oh, that person, that Kiri, I was on her podcast once. I don't know. She's probably not going to remember me. Whereas like you might have a really amazing amount of respect for that person and would refer them even if they asked you to, and they told you who would be a good customer for them. So I think that people just, and the thing about relationships and relationship marketing is they're, the least expensive, most effective lead, right?
Yeah.
It costs a lot. You don't have to run traffic. You don't need a relationship marketing funnel. You need a pipeline of people that you keep in touch with on a regular basis for who you have crossover interest in industries. But there is, it's a really underutilized strategy that I think a lot of small business owners don't take advantage of. And if you look at like really popular 7-figure businesses, we hear of the businesses with the big funnels and the big podcasts. But what the truth is most 7-figure businesses are built this way. Most 7-figure businesses, like if you look at the CPA firm on the corner with the 10, accountants, that 7-figure business, they're not running a funnel. They do really good work and they probably have a good referral program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people need to be kind of thinking about that, in the age of digital marketing, which of course I'm a digital marketing expert. But I think when we talk about expert businesses and thought leader businesses, like we're talking about here in consulting, it all comes down to connections and relationships.
Yeah. I struggle sometimes like building an audience and engagement online, like most people do. I would say the majority of people do.
Yeah.
And I put out a call for a podcast manager. My podcast manager gave her notice. I was like, okay, I need to hire a new one. And I had a few people messaged me who were like, hey, I've been following your stuff. I've loved what you said about this, and like pulling up stuff that I was like, it was legit. Like at first I was like, oh, I didn't just say that. And then I started looking into things. I was like, no, this is real. Like, okay, so all this stuff I've been posting over and over again that sometimes I feel like I'm getting crickets on, which is probably on me. I have to figure out how to make it more engagement, but people are seeing it and they are looking at it and they are engaging with it. And then through that, actually, I ended up getting some people for my coaching. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, look at that. Like this whole relationships that you might not think you have, but because I was just staying on top of mind over and over again, posting and posting, it actually works. Who knew? How do you think balance spending money and making money in your business? You just actually mentioned about like, the revenue with the photography franchise versus now. What do you think it's looking like right now, and best investment and worst investments?
Yeah. I mean, my best investment's always people. It's always people. Always. I end up, you get into a coaching program and I get sucked in just like everybody else, and then you get into, and every time I do, I'm like, why didn't I just hire somebody who knows how to do this, for the love of God? So, I think it's always people. I'm in a people business. I have been for 20 years. I've never sold widgets. I've always sold services. And so, hiring people has always made me more money. Always. And I think we're always hesitant to hire people. And I think that's for good reason. It's a responsibility. when we take on people, we want to make sure that we can support them, we lead them, guide them, manage them, train them. It is a responsibility. But it's just the best way to grow your business.
What do you think has been one of the worst investments you've made?
It's very different from when I was in brick and mortar. Do you want me to answer it brick and mortar and then answer it
Yes.
online? So offline businesses, they're just so different. Offline businesses, some of the toughest investments I had made were just mistakes. Like sign a lease and then you realize the HVAC system wasn't included in the lease, and then the HVAC system quits and it's $13,000 because they have to get a crane to put the HVAC system on top of the building. Like that kind of stuff. It's just like not knowing. It's just inexperience in brick and mortar. And it was usually related to like infrastructure expenses that just you weren't anticipating, and I think are inevitable in brick and mortar, or like snows for a week and you're like, oh, all right, now I know I need to have that in the bank. So brick and mortar is just, it's hard. It's a harder business in my opinion. And that is, those were a lot of the mistakes. They were more structural mistakes, I think, in brick and mortar and franchising in particular. For the online business, I think it's getting into programs where I discredit myself for what I already knew.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And I think that skill building programs are really good. Like I think our consulting certification program is really good. It is 80% skill set. We do some mindset, we do some business development, but it's 80% like building actual skills that will help you become a consultant. But I think as we get into the space where people are, kind of regurgitating a lot of the same stuff of what we're hearing online, I think a lot of us, I look back on when I started in business and I had to code my own website in a program called Dreamweaver. I had to, I started 20 years ago. And I think in a lot of ways, sort of this pure entrepreneurial spirit has been somewhat squashed by the frameworks and the formulas and the 3 steps to blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of us can probably figure it out and then we take more ownership for the information and we were able to customize it more for ourselves. So, yeah, it's been hit or miss with programs.
I would agree with that. So tell me a little bit about your business and the mindset that you needed to adapt to when you were growing it to 7 figures. What do you think is some advice you have for women with the mindset issues of the imposter syndrome or getting scared to really grow and, move forward?
Yeah, so this is fascinating to me because, in my 20s, I was fearless.
I know, I think about that too.
Oh my God. Like I remember getting involved in the Professional Photographers of America Association. And they're like, you're making $850,000 as a wedding photographer. And I'm like, I am? Like, I didn't even know, because there was no social media. There was no, get to 7 figures. There was none of that. So like, I wasn't paying attention to it because there wasn't even Facebook at that time. And I was like, I am? Really? They're like, you should be keeping a lot more of this. And I was like, really? Like, I had no idea. And then I remember being when I found out I was at 7 figures is I had to apply to a CEO program called Vistage, just like
I know. Yeah.
CEO group. I was in Vistage in like my late 20s. I was like the youngest person in there by like 30
I know.
years.
Most of the people are like
40
years. 40s, 40s.
Totally. I was like, how
Yeah.
did I get here? But there was no masterminds, right? So I remember being like, am I making $1 million to my CPA? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, all right, how much? He's like 1.1. And I was like, all right, put it down. I'm trying to join this program. Like, I had no idea. And I think it was just like, I was just kind of fearless. And I was all about, there was no comparison. There was no like, she's doing this, he's doing that. I was just like, how do I get on the list at the Four Seasons? Because they have the best weddings. Like, how do I get in with the best planners? Like, I was just like so focused on the work, and now I think for me, and, I didn't have kids, I was single. I could, kind of just like run around like a crazy person and be really aggressive and like grow my business, Now it's much more nuanced and I'm much more thoughtful. So again, like I could have launched all the time and gotten there years ago. Like to me, it's not about having the confidence and the skill set anymore. It's really about having that intentional life, right? And knowing like you'll get there if you're consistent. If you have a great product and you have a market that's willing to pay for your great product, like you will get there. And the speed in which you get there has a lot to do with like how much time and money you're willing to put in, right now in this season of life. And having a mom of 3 kids under 10, it's like, I want to work part-time.
Yeah.
If it takes a little longer to get there, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So I think like giving yourself grace, I would just say for both of my clients, giving yourself grace around this idea of it happening on anybody else's terms but your own. And also just being really confident that like if you do the right things long enough, you will get there. Like there's
Mm.
no easy button.
No. So what are your long-term plans for this business that you have right now?
Yeah, it's so funny because it's a lot of what I just shared. So with the consulting certification, we just made that full-time hire and that really needed to happen for me to feel confident starting to market again. So I'm starting to market again, because I didn't want to flood our fulfillment. Um, and so just continually train aspiring consultants, just do really good work, and then continually onboard more and more nonprofits onto our systems and processes. And over time, have an amazing business and brand. And ultimately, I think at this stage in the game, again, I'm in my mid 40s, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's like, okay, I might have another 20 years left doing it full speed, probably halfway through. And like when I tell people the story of the work, I just want to feel like it did, I know it sounds so cheesy, but like that I helped people. Like that's really all I care about. And that it's so important to me. Because at this point, like I could keep my business the way it is and have an amazing lifestyle and retire really well. So at a certain point, it doesn't become about the money. At a certain point, it becomes about impact.
Do you think that's why some women hit roadblocks and don't make it to seven figures? Do they not have this strong, compelling drive to help others, maybe, or have a strong why?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I'm built. That's how God made me. I've definitely got a strong Enneagram 2 in me. But I think it doesn't have to be my why. It just has to be your own. And I
Right.
think a lot of people don't know their mission, don't know their vision, don't have that dialed in. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing, or the why is to prove the popular girls from high school wrong. Like that's not going to be that motivating long term. Like you need to have something else that's driving you that is not not about not being enough, right? It has to be about something else.
Yeah. I had one guest on who had this mantra that she always said, even at home, like when she was trying to figure out and manage the kids, like, who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? And then I can't remember the third one. I think it was like, how am I going to get there or something like that? And that's like always what she came back to every single time. And it was like that mantra that she just kind of said to herself. So I
Mm.
want to thank you though for your time. I know we
Yeah.
had a short little bit of time here, but it was really, really helpful. Where can we find you, your business? If you have anything you want to share with our audience, please
Yeah.
do. This is your moment.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to joybrandcreative.com, that's just our website. If you want to get in touch with me regarding consulting services, if you have the kind of business or know somebody who does that we help, would love to hear from them or you. And then if you scroll towards the bottom of the page, you can click on Become a Certified Consultant and get on our wait list for our next consulting certification. So that's joybrandcreative.com.
Thank you so much. So, what is one philosophy, mantra, or quote that you try to run your business by?
Yeah, it is all about, not being afraid to begin again. I think not making decisions on sunk costs, but making decisions on what I most want in the future.
I usually wrap it up. I have one more question for other women who are trying to find their way. When do you advise burning something down and starting over? That just made your answer made me be like, because there are women out there who are at that point, who might be with their business, are like, you know what, I think I want to go in a different direction. I want to burn this down. What advice do you have for them? How do you know it's the right time?
Yeah. Don't do it on emotion, right? And don't do it because you're tired, hungry, or need a nap. Like, do it because logic. Like, you are looking at the logic, like you are selling, you're selling igloos to Eskimos, and you're realizing that, and you're like, this is not going to work. Your market size isn't addressable, or you started a business that like other people just aren't making money on either. If it doesn't exist in the market, there's probably a reason, that's when you realize, like for me, it's just numbers. It came down to numbers and logic. I think a lot of people want to burn it to the ground because they think that the grass is greener. We've even seen that in our consulting certification. I'm like, grass is not greener. Consulting clients are not easier than agency clients. Agency clients are not easier than copywriting clients. Like, it's just different work. And I happen to love consulting work. But I think people are more apt to make that decision on emotion than logic, but just make sure that you're making it on logic. A great book to read, if you're not sure, is The Dip by Seth Godin. That really helped me.
Seth Godin. He's a good one, Seth Godin. If our
Mhm.
listeners haven't listened to him, check out his stuff. He's amazing. All right. Well, thank you for that last minute question. Really appreciate it. And thank you for this interview, Laura. It's been super helpful. And for all our listeners out there, make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter, because we're going to jump into some 5 exclusive questions with Laura that you will only get if you are signed up. So thank you again. Super duper appreciate your time.
Thank you.